how to tune a guitar using a reference pitch for every string. This guitar is very out of tune, and we're going to tune it up by playing a note on the piano for every string on the guitar and matching that string to that specific pitch. You don't have to use a piano. You can use an online keyboard if you want. Some tuners will have the ability to play certain notes out loud for you. Online tuners for the guitar will do that. So any source that will give you a correct E, A, D, G, and B will work for this task. Okay, the number one thing to keep in mind when you do this is when you are turning the tuning peg to play constantly in the right hand. You see, while I'm turning the knob, my right hand is replaying the note every like 4 times a second. Okay, so the reason we do that, one, it prevents overshooting. So if you tune the note up correctly, you will start to notice if you are playing constantly when it gets too tight and you've gone too far, okay? But if you are not playing the note and you're just tuning the knob and turning the knob and turning the knob, it's very easy to overshoot it and break the string, okay? That's a very common problem with beginners is when they try to tune, they play the note and then they turn the knob, okay, left hand only. But you need to constantly be playing in the right hand while you're turning the knob always. Okay, it can take some coordination initially to learn how to do that and play constantly in the right hand and turn the knob, but once you get it, that's really the only way to tune effectively. The second thing that prevents actually is also sometimes even advanced players will accidentally they'll grab the wrong knob. They'll be like looking at something else and they'll think that they'll be tuning a certain string and they'll be twisting this knob, but you notice I'm twisting this knob, but the note is not changing. Okay, so playing constantly also prevents that, where you very easily can be grabbing the wrong knob and turning the wrong knob. So playing constantly helps to check for that also. All right, that's the most important thing when you tune it anyway. Okay, reference pitch on the guitar. We start with a low E. My low string is very flat. Let's tune it up, get it in the ballpark. All right, let's check that again. Still very low. Let's keep going. Let's check this. Okay, now this is getting close, but this demonstrates something about tuning. When you are tuning, first of all, you got to get it into even the right vicinity. But once you do, you need to listen for beating. Okay, so when two notes are out of tune, you'll be able to hear the air pressure waves actually interfere with one another, and you'll hear a aural phenomenon called beating. Okay, and that's when you'll hear a sort of wah 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 or wah 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 or wah wah wah. So it can be different speeds depending on how out of tune the note is. But if you listen closely, when you play an out of tune note with a correctly tuned note, there'll be some or something like that. Okay, the objective when you're tuning to get perfect tuning is to eliminate the beating so that the notes fuse. Okay, the guitar sound will sound like it's inside the piano sound and that they're one sound. And that sort of perceptual fusion is what you're going for when you tune to a reference pitch. Okay, so let's get it even closer. Very significant beating here because the note is still very out of tune. I'm trying to expose the beating phenomena. Maybe it doesn't come through so well in the recording, but do this for yourself and you will hear it. Part of the reason Part of the reason I make students tune this way is it builds pitch memory. It's pretty difficult on the guitar to play the note on reference pitch and then go back and tune it with the hand. Okay, maybe I could hold down the pedal and do this. But it's nice to actually force a student to this note, internalize it and memorize what this sounds like and sing it maybe. Then come away from the instrument and try to match the memorized pitch. All right, so it's a way of starting to build a pitch memory. All right, so these two are pretty much fused. And now we move on to the next string. So give our A reference. This string is very sharp. Now, I was taught that when you're tuning a string that is sharp, you should always loosen the knob below the target pitch and then come up to the target. The reason being, I think the justification for it is like weak guitar pegs or not very high quality tuners, the gear will tend to slip if you're sort of putting the motion in it to loosen and go down. It sort of primes the gear to continue to slip. I'm not sure how accurate this is anymore with modern style tuners, whether this is really the case. I think it's a good habit to get into if you ever do play a lower quality instrument that might not have very good tuners, to just be in that habit. So you'll probably see me do that. If I'm on a sharp string, I will loosen below the target and come up always to the target pitch. All right, so here's an A. So it was very sharp. I've loosened it below the target. Now let's come up to it. Still, I'm very slightly sharp. I overshot a little bit. Okay, next string. Very slightly flat. That's good. Okay, next one. Very flat. Notice how I memorize the pitch, get it into the ballpark, and then after that, some fine checking back and forth between the guitar and the reference. This string, another sharp string. So let's tune it down, and then come up to our reference. I'm very slightly, I've overshot it. I'm still a little sharp here. And if you can't hear that right away, don't worry, okay? It's taken me years to get to the ability to hear this pretty quickly, okay? When you're first starting, it will be challenging to tell how out of tune it is. Sometimes people have a difficult time telling whether the note is really flat or sharp, okay? Experimentation, the only way you're going to get better at it is by trying to do this, okay? If you never try to tune a guitar with a reference pitch and you're always relying on an electronic tuner, then you'll never build this skill. All right, so last pitch, here we go. Okay, at the end of this process, it's always good to check that the guitar is in tune. I'm not going to go into a very in-depth explanation of the way that I check and why I check this way, but suffice to say, over many years, this is what I've decided on as the quickest and most effective, most reliable way to check a tuning on a guitar is simply play this chord, which is you're going to do a mini bar on the 2nd fret of the 5th and 4th strings, and then the pinky goes on the 4th fret of the 3rd string. So you sort of are playing this this shape, but then those are the only strings that should be fretted, and the low E string and the second string B and the high E should all be unfretted. If your guitar is in tune and you did this properly, there should be a nice resonance to this open chord, which is all B's and E's. What you're checking for here, the reason why you check is if the guitar was radically out of tune and the guitar hasn't been in tune for a while, sometimes this bridge, especially on acoustics, can sort of warp or get pulled. Like let's say you increase a lot of string tension, that bridge will subtly get pulled this way, which actually lowers string tension, which means maybe the first string you tuned will now be flat. So let's double check that. This stayed pretty in tune. I'm not going to try to mess with it, but sometimes that can happen. So one thing you're checking for is things that have happened as a result of tuning the guitar. All right. The second thing you're checking for is just if you did your job correctly, if you really matched and listened closely to every pitch. The biggest things to check for are this 4th fret B on the 3rd string matching the open B. This is acceptable. It's not too far out. All right. Also, this B should match both of those. All the B's should match, and then all the E's should match. Not only does this chord check that the B's and E's match each other, but it checks that the B's and E's react together correctly. So not only that all the E's match and all the B's match, but that the E's and B's are tuned properly in relation to one another. This is acceptable. This is not perfect. My G string is slightly sharp. Very common problem. The G string on the guitar is the biggest culprit in tuning in anything. Okay, it's just, especially on classical guitar, it's a very thick string to have just that single nylon filament, and it just reacts always very strangely. So always be very vigilant about the G string. Also on electric guitars, that unwound single wire, the G string lies in this strange middle ground where like maybe it really should be a wound string like on a steel string acoustic, but we don't like that for various reasons. So it's always having trouble sort of staying in tune. So watch especially for that G string. Okay, that's how to tune a guitar using a reference pitch for every string.